Mr. President. And since 2015, when I first took office as a U.S. Senator in my home state of North Carolina, we have tragically lost far too many law enforcement officers. In fact, we've lost 85 in the time that I've been a U.S. Senator since 2015. This includes deaths related to law enforcement assaults, gunfire, vehicular pursuits, and duty-related illnesses. These officers took an oath to protect and serve our communities. These heroes made the ultimate sacrifice, giving their life to protect their communities. I will not get into all the details about each officer, Madam President, but Mr. President, what I would ask is unanimous consent to provide a list of the fallen officers since I've been a member of the U.S. Senate to be included in the record.
Without objection.
Thank you, Mr. President. As we start the 119th Congress, my colleague from North Carolina, who is currently presiding, I think we both agree that we want to emphasize that Congress has a role in supporting and protecting our law enforcement officers across this country. According to the National Fraternity Order of Police, in 2024, 342 officers were shot in the line of duty. Of those officers, 50 officers were tragically killed by criminals. Unfortunately, over the past few years, we've seen shameful behavior from certain, and I hope and I pray that it's a minority of our society. But we have people out there raising money for fundraising runs called the 13.12 mile run. 1312 translates into ACAB. And on their website, they proudly proclaim that ACAB stands for All Cops Are Bastards. Let that sink in. It's appalling to hear this kind of rhetoric, and it has to stop. These dangerous statements not only create distrust and disdain for our brave men and women in blue, the vast majority of which are good, hardworking people that we all know in our communities, but it's made their job to protect and serve more difficult and more deadly. We've got to do better. We've got to protect law enforcement, and that's why I plan to reintroduce multiple pieces of legislation in the coming weeks. First among them is going to be the Protect and Serve Act. It makes a federal crime for anyone who knowingly causes or attempts to cause bodily harm or injury to a law enforcement officer. It's amazing it's not a crime already. I hope to do so with strong bipartisan support when I file the bill and get it passed in this Congress. We also must act to punish criminals who intentionally murder law enforcement. That's why I'll also be introducing the Justice for Fallen Law Enforcement Act. This legislation would create a criminal penalty for the murder of a local, state, or federal law enforcement officer, punishable with a death penalty or life imprisonment without parole. I urge all Americans listening to contact their senators and representatives, tell them that you want to protect law enforcement officers, and support enhancing penalties for those who would do them harm. The men and women in blue are heroes. They deserve our support. We need everyone in our communities to stand up to these people who would not want them in the community, who would not want them to respond to a 911 call. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine our communities if the logical conclusion of these people who hate law enforcement officers so much that they proudly profess that all cops are bastards publicly to raise money? We need to increase awareness, and we need to make absolutely certain that every man and woman in blue knows we have their back. Thank you, Mr. President.